I'm Carrie Butzer. Thank you for joining us for WOLV News Monday edition. We have all the news, sports, and weather to keep you in touch with U of M and beyond.
With the new Republican leaders in Congress threatening to make good on their promise to abolish the National Endowment for the arts community is fighting back using the NEA's own figures to show that the bulk of federal money goes to bread and butter art, such as regional ballets in the Pacific Northwest, small-town children's theaters in the Midwest, and a new chamber music program in rural Georgia. NEA critics do not dispute that much of its $170 million budget goes to mainstream art projects, acknowledging that 99% goes to worthy causes. They say the bad outweighs the good, and funding should still be cut. Your risk of acquiring HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, may be significantly higher if you have sex with someone who is infected within the past 60 days. According to a recent study, doctors report that people appear to be far more infectious during this phase of the virus than they say. The initial 2-month period immediately following infection is the key factor in controlling transmission of the virus and the spread of the epidemic. Since HIV antibodies do not appear in the bloodstream until near the end of the 2-month primary infection phase, a negative blood test is no guarantee that your sexual partner does not have the virus. The more sexual partners you have, the greater the risk of infection, because the odds of having sex with someone in the primary infection phase are greater. So as always, if you have sex, be safe, use protection.
When the U.S. Shuttle Discovery takes off on Thursday, a woman will man the controls. Eileen Collins is scheduled to become the world's first female spacecraft pilot this week, crowning the hopes and dreams of women pilots throughout the century. Although 19 women have rocketed in space as astronauts, all of them have been passengers. Collins will be the first to fly. Although she ranks below the shuttle's commander, the person in charge of guiding the 100-ton spacecraft, her achievement is no less astonishing. For more than 30 years, female pilots have fought for a shot in the pilot seat. Now those same women will attend the liftoff on Thursday to give their dreams a blast of reality.
49-year-old U of M student Melanie Welch is pursuing an internal appeal and proceeding with a lawsuit after Friday's verdict that found her guilty on harassment charges. A 6-member student panel found Welch guilty on charges filed by her former neighbors in the university family housing. They claim harassment began fall of 1993. The trial produced a discrepancy between the two parties' stories, but in the end, Welch was found guilty. She was also charged with assault, but not found guilty of this charge. Welch's sanction was not disclosed because of her rights, protected by the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. As University of Michigan student Eric Morgenroth recovers from his heart transplant, his family and doctors are cautiously optimistic about his recovery. Eric developed acute myocarditis in December, a rare viral infection that nearly killed him. A 32-year-old woman from a Detroit suburb became Eric's savior after her family donated her heart. According to Joan Seifert Rose of the U of M Medical Center, there is no sign of rejection or infection. However, doctors remain hopeful but cautious as Eric struggles through a crucial 2-week critical period.
LSA is taking over the communications department. Faculty members from outside the department have been recommended to be part of the rebuilding of the executive committee that will be in charge of the upcoming changes. The situation is unique because the executive committees of other departments do not include faculty from outside their department. Members of the communications department are in agreement that this is appropriate action and will help with the restructuring. South Quad is famous for its early morning fire alarms, but during the last 2 months, its residents have been subjected to 9 false alarms. The Department of Public Safety is concerned that an abundance of false alarms will desensitize the residents in case of an actual fire. Last semester, RAs stopped the practice of checking every room during an alarm. This practice has been rekindled with the rise in the false alarms. Students who pull the fire alarms will be criminally prosecuted, and those who do not evacuate during the alarm will be fined $50. There will also be rewards of $100 to residents who provide information leading to those who pull the alarms. This information will be kept confidential. Pulling a false fire alarm is a misdemeanor with a maximum punishment of 1 year and $500 fine. SafeWalk has extended its hours 5 days a week. Sunday through Thursday, walks will begin at 6 p.m., 2 hours earlier than before, and continue until 2:30 a.m. Friday and Saturday hours will remain 8 p.m. until 11:30 p.m. The change is a result of the increase in calls and letters to DPS and the Vice President of Student Affairs. Hours for Northwest System remains 8 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 8 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. Friday and Saturday. And now it's sports with Andy Cashman.
Last night, the Super Bowl showcased the San Francisco 49ers and the San Diego Chargers. It was apparent early who showed up to play and who simply showed up. The 49ers took their offensive and defensive machine into Miami, favored by 18.5, and oh, did they cover. The final score being 49-26. Steve Young opened up with a completion to John Taylor and never looked back. He threw it for a Super Bowl record 6 touchdowns and ended up with 325 yards passing on an amazing 24 for 36 effort, giving him the MVP trophy and releasing the Joe Montana weight that he's been carrying for years. Also starring for the 49ers was the great Jerry Rice, who caught 10 passes good for 149 yards and 3 touchdowns. For all you primetime fans, Deion Sanders did have a pick, allowing him to teach the country a few new dance steps and talk a little trash. The only bright spot for the Chargers was QB Stan Gelbaugh, who passed for 275 yards and never seemed to give in to the overpowering 49ers. And now for the real attraction to the Super Bowl, the commercials. Roll Gold swept away the show when Seinfeld's Jason Alexander parachuted into Joe Robbie Stadium with his Roll Gold pretzels. And a side note, University of Michigan alumni Elvis Gerbach saw action late in the game for San Francisco and was 0 for 1 for 0 yards. In local action, yesterday the Michigan Hoop Squad was upset by the St. John's Red Storm in front of a packed Chrysler Arena. The Wolverine men could not seem to ever get away from the Johnnies. The team admitted to looking past the Red Storm in favor of their Big Ten schedule. U of M plays 6 of its last 11 games at home and can't afford to lose any if it hopes to make the tourney. The bright spot for the Johnnies was junior James Scott, who lit it up from the outside for 28 points. Despite the lackluster performance, Michigan was still in the game in the last minute when the referee made an obvious call, which was a goaltend, and he never made the call. The difference ended up being at the foul line, however, where Michigan was 10 for 17, making a habit of losing the front end of 1-and-1s. St. John's was an amazing 18 for 20. In women's hoops action, our ladies traveled to Indiana only to lose on a last-second shot, adding to the U of M losses this weekend. On a brighter note, the Wolverine hockey team jumped to #1 in the polls with a victory over UIC. To end with, sex symbol Andre Agassi defeated Pete Sampras in 4 sets to capture the Australian Open title. Thank you. I'm Andy Cashman for WOLV Sports saying, get sleep, stay healthy, call your parents, and have a good day.
After enjoying the beautiful sunshine this afternoon, be prepared for the cold weather tonight. Lows will be in the teens. Tomorrow, the sun should be out in the morning, with clouds moving in the afternoon and evening. Possible flurries may develop. The high should be near 40, with a low of 26. Wednesday will be cooler, with flurries likely. High should be 36 with a low of 20. And on Thursday, sun should reappear with a high of 30 and a low of 16. Well, that's all for today's news, sports, and weather. For Carrie, Andy, and myself, have a good evening and tune in Friday at 7 p.m. for the latest world, national, and local news, sports, and weather. Good night.